When most people think of Scandinavia, they picture open, liberal nations full of high-quality public healthcare and well-organized infrastructure. They also think of an open-door policy for immigrants from all over the world. But for Denmark, that's not the case at all. In fact, the small country with a population of 5.8 million has put in some of the strictest immigration laws in the world. In this video, we'll take a look at how strict the immigration rules are in Denmark and the positive impact it's had on the nation's economy. For many decades, even the wealthy Nordic social democracies have been seen as a safe haven for immigration, regardless of origin, race, religion, or any other background. The Syrian refugee crisis in 2015 reinforced that perception around the world as asylum seekers poured into European nations. However, in recent times, this open-door attitude has begun to change, and migration policies have played a decisive role in driving changes in government. For starters, 2 out of 4 continental Nordic countries are no longer solely governed by social democratic parties. Conservative governments have made inroads in Sweden and Finland, while in Denmark the government is formed by a large coalition of social democrats and conservative liberals. This is no longer a left-right issue in places like Denmark, as shown by the rise of Denmark's leader Mette Frederiksen, for example, who supports allowing in 0 refugees. Her leftist coalition government has implemented controversial measures such as relocating asylum seekers to Rwanda, while their applications are processed, and revoking residence permits for Syrians from regions of Syria considered unsafe or that the Danish government can't vet. Denmark's stricter rules often center on immigrants and asylum seekers from Muslim-majority nations in particular, who are perceived as a drain on resources and potentially challenging Danish values. As Social Democrat members of Parliament Rasmus Stoklund said, "I don't think it's surprising that a left-wing party is tough on immigration. The part of society that bears the brunt of unchecked migration is the working-class population that we should be representing. The people most affected by open borders are those that don't have economic resources. It is their children who have to go to schools that experience cultural clashes. It is those people who have to experience the criminality and social problems that follow." How strict are immigration rules in Denmark? Denmark has gained a reputation as one of Europe's strictest countries regarding immigration, with extremely strict rules across various categories. In terms of citizenship, the usual requirement involves residing in Denmark for 9 consecutive years. Refugees who are already in Denmark have to live in the country for 8 years before applying. Those married to a Danish person can apply as early as 6 years into living in the country, and those who are already citizens of a Scandinavian country can apply after 2 years. Denmark also has a detailed citizenship test that asks about Danish values and includes 45 multiple-choice questions about topics including human rights, equality, and freedom of speech. Regarding asylum and refugees, Denmark gained international attention in 2016 for a law allowing police to confiscate valuables from arriving migrants. This was done to help cover refugee costs and stop Denmark from becoming a magnet for asylum seekers wanting to take advantage of its generous social benefits. Then in 2019, Denmark had a further paradigm shift, marking a more significant change, treating all refugees as having temporary status, with laws geared towards eventual repatriation when their home country is deemed safe. In other words, the message to refugees was, yes, some of you can stay, but only for as long as necessary. Denmark's immigration policies have caused controversy in the liberal media, but the numbers don't lie. Their strict policies have helped the economy and eased the burden of the social safety net. The benefits of living in a Nordic country like Denmark are significant. Citizens born in these countries generally have easy access to healthcare, housing, pensions, and numerous subsidies that lower costs. Welfare states like Denmark are funded primarily through high taxes, with a tax burden exceeding 40%. Citizens pay a high amount to live in safe and generous nations that care for them. As the government's leftist social democratic housing minister Kara Dybvad notes, when groups lack solidarity with each other, then it's very easy to be annoyed about paying 45% in taxes. If you want to be a party of the working class and middle class, you have to ensure that migration has a manageable level, Dybvad added. The core issue arises when a significant number of immigrants with limited educational or professional training arrive in these countries. This demographic tends to contribute less to the tax system while consuming more public resources. The generosity of social benefits in these countries creates a pull effect, making it more appealing for some to receive subsidies than and engage in low-skilled jobs. Denmark's zero refugee policy has led to a minimal acceptance of refugees, particularly compared to neighboring countries like Germany and Sweden. Denmark has also taken bold steps against what it terms ghettos, or parallel societies, particularly after gang violence and uprisings led to a spate of murders in 2017, including the murder of 2 Danish police officers. The government passed laws to reorganize and redesign public housing neighborhoods, such as the Mjølnerparken housing project in Copenhagen. When people talk about New York, they say it's a melting pot, but actually it's not, Debacle also notes. You have one area with people of Chinese background and one with people of Lithuanian background, and they're not melting together. I don't want Copenhagen to be like that. These areas with a high concentration of non-Western immigrants all in one area are set to be taken down and redesigned by 2030. This involves demolishing or selling public housing units and relocating the immigrant population to prevent concentration in specific areas. A list of 19 vulnerable areas has been determined by the government where more than half of the population has been labeled non-Western, and there has been an accompanying rise in social problems. Children in these areas are made to attend at least 25 hours of preschool for lessons in Danish culture, with those who don't comply potentially having their benefits cut. How successful have Denmark's strict immigration policies been? Denmark's strict immigration policies under the Social Democratic Party have emphasized reduced social benefits, stricter language requirements, and put much more pressure on migrants to get a job. Successful asylum bids were cut by around half by the party's second year in office, from 85% in 2015 to 44% in 2020. The stricter rules on migrants getting jobs has also lowered the percentage of non-Western immigrants receiving state support from 43% in 2004 to 29% in 2019. As for the unemployment rate, that has also been falling, reaching a low of 2.9% in December of 2023 after peaking at almost twice that in the spring of 2020 and reaching similar highs in the early and mid-2010s. That said, the burden is still significant. A finance ministry report estimated a net drain of 31 billion kroner, roughly $4.9 billion from public finances by immigrants from non-Western countries in 2018. In Denmark, by 2050, non-Western immigrants and second-generation immigrants are expected to make up 6.1% and 4.3% of the population, respectively, increasing from 4.9% and 2.3%. Western first and second-generation immigrants are projected to comprise 4.5% and 1.6%, up from 3.5% and 0.4%. Statistical projections suggest that immigration from non-Western countries is associated with a net cost to the public purse. This negative fiscal impact is attributed to the lower employment rates and higher social income transfer expenditures for non-Western immigrants. In contrast, immigration from Western countries appears to generate a positive net contribution to public funds, indicating a potential fiscal benefit. The projections reveal varying fiscal impacts based on the origin of immigrants, emphasizing the need to consider factors such as employment rates and social expenditures in assessing the overall economic consequences of immigration. Denmark's workforce is expected to decrease by 62,000 individuals in 2050, mainly affecting non-Western immigrants. Economically, the reduction in immigration is projected to decrease employment by 2%, GDP by 1.4%, and result in a 1.6% reduction in total public spending in 2050. While nominal wages would increase by 0.5%, real wages would increase by 0.4%. The public budget is expected to improve relative to GDP due to lower public consumption generated by non-Western immigrants. This is something Denmark should look forward to. Denmark supports a high standard of living. Its per capita gross national product is among the highest in the world, with well-developed social services. The economy is based primarily on service industries, trade, and manufacturing. Only a tiny percentage of the population is engaged in agriculture and fishing. Small enterprises are dominant. Long-standing economic collaboration between Denmark and the other Nordic countries is also a big source of Denmark's economic strength. In the Danish mixed welfare state economy, private sector expenditures account for more than half of the net national income. Public expenditure is directed primarily toward health and social services, education, economic affairs, foreign affairs, and national defense. Could Denmark's policy on immigration serve as an example for the rest of the West? Denmark's stringent approach to immigration is not only a reaction to the 2015 European refugee crisis, but is deeply rooted in historical and cultural factors. Unlike neighboring Sweden, Denmark has historically valued homogeneity, with policies dating back to the 19th century history, emphasizing Danish language and culture for citizenship. Recent immigration policies reflect a two-pronged strategy of repelling potential migrants and reshaping the integration process for those who settle in the country. The country's integration policies include tough measures such as lengthening the wait for permanent residency and ending the obligation to teach in pupils' mother tongues. Denmark's emphasis on cultural cohesion is evident in its introduction of lessons covering Danish culture, history, and democratic values in schools. The recent law requiring new citizens to shake hands during naturalization ceremonies is seen as especially aimed at conservative Muslims, urging them to stay away if they don't agree. Denmark's approach has sparked controversy, with critics denouncing it as leading the race to the bottom. However, some countries view Denmark as a role model. The Immigration and Integration Minister, Mattias Tesfaye, has hosted delegations from various European countries, while even the UK has reportedly discussed cooperating with Denmark on processing asylum applications in third countries. Despite its critics, Denmark's policies are seen by some as necessary for preserving its social democratic welfare state. The country's defense against potential economic burdens from immigrants, particularly those from non-Western countries, has proven to be a success. Here's the bottom line on Denmark's immigration policies. Around a decade ago, Denmark's government helped finance a broad public awareness campaign of the falling native birth rate. Couples were engaged to have children, and existing families were encouraged to have bigger families. The Danish birth rate is currently 1.6 births average per woman, far below the replacement rate of 2.2. In order to maintain a generous social safety net, Denmark needs that birth rate to grow, and it needs jobs filled by skilled individuals. That clearly needs to include a significant amount of immigration, at least at this point in time. But the kicker is that immigration depends a lot on who exactly is coming in. Numerous studies have showed that while skilled immigrants from developed nations tend to have a positive impact on the economy of Denmark, immigrants from poorer nations have an overall negative impact on the economy and on the social safety net. Denmark can use immigration to strengthen fiscal sustainability, provided immigrants have good employment prospects and remain active in the labor market. However, challenges arise due to Denmark's welfare model and the historical attraction of immigrants with weak labor market prospects who aren't really well suited to work in the modern Danish economy or adjust to its society. All over Europe, aging populations threaten nations' financial sustainability. Denmark has extensive tax-financed welfare programs that provide a high social safety net. Immigrants from richer countries have a positive fiscal impact, while immigrants from poorer countries have a large negative one. The negative effect is caused by both a weak labor market performance and early retirement, in combination with the universal Danish welfare schemes. Denmark's economy is on a definite growth curve, with some of the best standard of living in Europe and a very low crime rate. Around 473,000 criminal offenses were documented in 2022 in Denmark, marking a decrease of approximately 59,000 compared to 2012. Notably, Denmark holds the distinction of being the second most peaceful country globally, surpassed only by its Nordic counterpart, Iceland. The prevalent crime encountered by Danish residents in 2022 was theft. When assessing crimes per 100,000 inhabitants, the crime rate in Denmark was lower in 2022 than it was 4 years prior and is continuing to fall. Denmark also ranks second in the Global Peace Index despite increased military preparedness spending to counter potential Russian military threats near its borders. There needs to be some room for social mobility and giving immigrants a chance who come from poor and tragic backgrounds, but why exactly is Europe or Denmark responsible for giving people that chance? Why not more wealthy Arabic and Muslim nations like Saudi Arabia or the UAE, who share the values of those refugees and immigrants who need somewhere to go? Denmark's stringent approach, marked by a goal of a zero refugee policy and aggressive measures against parallel societies, particularly regarding Muslim-majority immigrant populations, stands out as a bold experiment that may influence the direction of immigration policies in other European nations. The success or failure of these measures will shape the ongoing debate on immigration and social cohesion in the Scandinavian region and beyond. If you like this video and want to learn more about what's really going on in the world, check out this video here. And if this video brought value to you today, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. Thanks for watching.